Welcome to Gamechangers, the show where I talk to leaders who are changing the game and shaping the future of their industries. I'm Holly O'Neill, President of Retail Banking at Bank of America. My guest today has devoted her career to championing women leaders by giving them the confidence, the skills, and the community to achieve their goals. Tiffany Dufu is the president of the Tory Burch Foundation, an organization that supports women entrepreneurs with access to capital, education, and community. She's also the founder of The Crew, a peer coaching company for women, and the best-selling author of Drop the Ball, Achieving More by Doing Less. Previously, she was on the launch committee for Lean In, Chief Leadership Officer at the Women's Professional Network, LEVO, and the president of the White House Project. Tiffany has been named to Entrepreneur's 100 Most Powerful Women and Fast Company's League of Extraordinary Women. She is also a member of Delta Sigma Theta sorority, a mom, a New Yorker, and a lifetime Girl Scout. Thanks so much for joining me, Tiffany.
Thank you for having me.
So you've obviously accomplished a lot in your career. Entrepreneur, author, president of the Tory Burch Foundation. You've had a variety of roles, worn different hats. So how did you get to where you are today?
People and purpose is how I got here sitting in front of Holly. People, I think, to start, I am the cumulative investment of a lot of people who have poured themselves into me. Many years ago, early in my career, I got a job as a nonprofit fundraiser. It was my first nonprofit fundraising job. And I'll never forget, after the first board meeting that I presented to, one of the board members pulled me aside. Her name is Janie Williams. She's no longer with us, but she was a board member of this school. And she said to me, "What's your name again?" I said, Tiffany Dufu. She says, "Honey," she says, "you're really smart and you work hard, but you don't know anything about raising money. And that's your job." She says, "Do you want to learn?"
Janie.
And I said, "Yes, ma'am." And she says, "Okay." She says, "What I want you to do is show up tomorrow." She gave me an address. She says, "Do you have a suit or a nice business dress?" I said, "I do." She says, "Show up at this address." She gave me the time. And she said, "I want you to show up. You're going to come to this meeting with me. Just don't say anything during the meeting." And I said, okay. I showed up. She introduced me to a philanthropist, and she introduced me by just saying, "This is Tiffany Dufu. She's a superstar. She's here to learn how to raise money," which I thought was a very savvy way of telling the person what she was there to do. And she did that for about 6 months. She took me from meeting to meeting. She would give me the same instructions: be on time, wear your suit or your dress, don't say anything during the meeting. She introduced me to nearly every philanthropist in my hometown of Seattle by saying, "This is Tiffany Dufu. She's a superstar. She's here to learn how to raise money." And I could tell story after story after story of a woman who saw something in me and said, "Do you want to learn?" and took the time to teach me.
Well, thank you to Janie, and thank you to you. So Tiffany, one thing that has been very consistent in your career and everything that you've done is your commitment to advancing for women and girls. So why is that? When did you first realize that's where you wanted to be? And what helps keep you motivated to do that as you move forward?
It's such a great question. People ask a lot about purpose. And people, I think, feel a lot of pressure to have clarity about what their purpose is. I don't know who on Instagram told every woman she needed to have some purpose. But
must have purpose.
Must have purpose.
Yeah.
I think that purpose is important, but I don't think it's anything mystical. Meaning, I don't know anyone who was walking down the street, the skies opened up, and some voice of God said to them, "You're here to save the orca whales." I actually think that purpose is simply a decision inspired by one or more experiences that you've had in your life. And the experience that I've had, which are multiple, that probably most ladders up to my purpose and my commitment to advancing women, has to do with my mom, Brenda. I really credit my mom with who I am. She didn't have a mother like I did. who told her every day she was smart and she was beautiful and she was loved and that she could achieve her dreams and do anything that she wanted. But she did that for me. And I probably get up every day just to thank her because she got to a point in her life where she had to manage, you know, her demons. So I don't have access to her anymore, but I have access to women. And if I can wake up and if I can say to you, or if I can say to your daughter, you're so smart, you're so beautiful, you're so loved, you can do this, and try to create a pathway for them, just like so many women have done for me, I'm here for it.
That's pretty impressive. So for your mom, Brenda, that's incredible. And it's very interesting insight. If you want to do something different, you have to get out there and make it happen.
Oh, for sure.
And she clearly did that. And, you know, as a mom, as a parent, that's great advice, you know, because I often talk about taking risk and stepping out of your comfort zone. And she did just that. She knew she had to find a way out.
Well, you know what's interesting is she did that because she had optimism and hope for this new child. Right?
You.
Sometimes we can do that for other people. Sometimes we can do that for our team. Sometimes we can do that for our organization. What I would love is for more people just to do it for them. More women to take the risk, to do the thing that they haven't done before for themselves.
Yeah, it's great. So you talk a lot about community, right? And this was in the introduction.
Yes.
What has community done for you personally?
Community is everything. Most recently in my life, I have really established what I call a crew. It's part of the reason why I started a company called The Crew. It's a group of, for me, women, but it doesn't have to be just women. We meet quite frequently, once a quarter. We all take a turn going around, sharing our ambitions, our challenges, and we all hold one another accountable. And for the past 15, almost 20 years now, we've been tethered to one another. It's like we're all climbing a mountain. And we're at different parts on the mountain, different industries, different organizations, different goals, but we're all climbing it. And we're tethered such that if somebody falls, we're all kind of lifting the person up. But what I've loved is that over time, we've now gotten to a point in our lives and careers where we're transacting with one another. And I think sometimes when we think about community, we think about the mentorship and we think about the management and who's going to support us. But I actually think that your peers are really important when it comes to community.
So your book, Drop the Ball, which I love the title of, speaks to the importance of just embracing imperfection and prioritizing what matters most. So can you explain why that's so powerful? And I cannot wait to hear your answer on this, because perfection is really hard to achieve.
It's very hard to achieve. In fact, it's impossible to achieve. I wrote a book called Drop the Ball because I used to be someone who was terrified of ever dropping a ball. I used to think that it meant I was failing to take timely action, I was being irresponsible, I was disappointing people, myself, my community, my family, I would be fired. And I know this sounds dramatic, but in my case, that I would be disappointing whole swaths of people, as in, if I mess this up, they're never going to hire another Black person again. Like, I'd be disappointing the entire Black race. What happened was not that I came up with some amazing philosophy on how to overcome this. What happened to me is what happens to so many of us, which is you have a life-changing event. And it's an event that causes you to drop balls right and left. And nothing, including your A-type personality or your incredible work ethic, can compensate for that. I've spoken to people for whom it's a diagnosis that is their drop the ball moment. You finally get the promotion of your dreams and realize it's a lot harder to be the boss now than it was when you were gossiping about the boss at the water cooler.
Sure is.
It could be a viral pandemic. It could be an economic recession. It could be anything. For me, it was the birth of my first child. That was my wake-up call that you can't do everything the way you used to do it before. And my Tiffany's epiphany, that's what I call my aha moments.
That.
Some people call them aha moments, was that Armageddon never hit. Meaning all of the things I was terrified would happen if I dropped a ball.
Right.
Those things never materialized in real life. Nobody called me to tell me they didn't love me anymore. I didn't get fired from my job. I didn't get arrested for all of the parking citations that had built up because I didn't move the car for alternate side parking in New York City. And so I started to really question, why is it that me and that so many women that I know feel so much pressure to keep all of these balls in the air to begin with, and really went down a journey. And I write about it in the book, but I talk about it a lot to basically, number one, get clear about what matters most to you.
Right.
Separate and apart from what matters to society, advertisers, your in-laws, whoever it might be. Also really getting clear about your highest and best use in achieving what matters most so that you're not just saying yes to everything that's coming over the fence.
Right.
And then finally figuring out how to get the help that you need, from the people around you so that they're invested in your success and you're being intentional about that.
So dropping the ball is very important.
It's very important.
And I don't think there is a working woman out there who cannot empathize with that, right?
Absolutely.
And I had a very similar epiphany when I had kids. You have to figure out what is important and what you can push off to the side.
That's it.
Where you need to spend your time and where you might not, because you have to prioritize. You cannot do everything.
Yes, and most importantly, no matter who you are, really just dropping the unrealistic expectations of yourself that didn't come from you, but that you're trying to live up to.
Well, and I think that is a constant journey, is figuring out the expectations that you do want to meet and those that you don't.
That's it.
And I often talk to people about, figure out what you're not willing to miss.
That's it.
And the other stuff, you can miss it if you can't make it happen. But that's taken a lifetime, by the way, for me anyway.
Me as well. It's a journey.
Right. It is a journey. So that journey, things often don't go according to plan, and very rarely do they go according to plan.
Really?
Never. I mean, just when you have your plan set, they move, right?
And I want to meet the person. I would like a masterclass with the person whose plans always materialize in the way that they
It would be nice, wouldn't it, to know that formula?
Yes.
So you face these curveballs. So what's your approach when you face an unexpected event, a twist and a turn in a plan? Like, what do you remind yourself of? How do you go through that?
I've had so many twists and bumps and curveballs. I have to admit at some point, I kind of gave up on the plan itself.
Right.
Because I just thought this isn't going to work. I mean, I remember when my husband and I got married really young. We were in Boston for business school. We talk about our time in Boston. We moved to New York. And, it's 2007. It's like the height of the financial crisis. He had gone to business school. He got a job in investment banking. Like, we were going to pay off the student loans with the job. But I mean, there was like all of these plans. And then life happened, as it does.
Right.
I think what's really important for everyone to have, if you have a partner, maybe you have it together, you have it alone, is what I would call some kind of compass, a series of questions that you ask yourself to help guide your decision making in the midst of the plan not going the way you thought it was going to, which is what will inevitably happen.
Right.
The questions that myself and my husband ask ourselves include, will this, if we move in this direction, advance women and girls, or will it advance sub-Saharan Africa? Because that's something that he cares deeply about. Will this put us on a path to financial freedom? Is this thing in alignment with the values that our parents instilled in us? Will our descendants be proud of us, or will they be like, oh my gosh, back then, that's when like the whole family went down the drain when they decided that they were going to move to this particular city.
Right.
Okay. And what I've discovered over a period of time is that even though I could not have told you 20 years ago that I would be living in New York City, that I would be president of the Tory Burch Foundation, that I would be a best-selling author, or any of those accolades that you just read in that bio. I could not have told you that I would be sitting across from really incredible, amazing women leaders, constantly learning from them, like you, Holly. But I could have told you that I would be advancing women and girls, that wherever I was, I would be on a path to financial freedom,
Right.
that whatever I would be doing would be in alignment with the values my parents sacrificed for and instilled in me.
Right.
And that whatever I would be doing, when the history books were written, my descendants would be like, we are so glad that we had Tiffany Dufu in our lineage. And if I can stay
Right.
on that particular path, I don't have to worry
Right.
about all of the things that I can't control
Right.
that are going to happen, that are going to cause me to get off track.
Right. Well, I can promise you, your descendants are going to be very
You
proud.
think so?
Oh, no question.
I hope
No
so.
question about it. But it's very interesting to hear you talk about that framework, because in there, it's not the little things. These are big guiding principles. And that's really, at the end of the day, what's important. And it allows the things that go off track to just fall through and you move on. So,
it.
but your descendants will be very proud. So since 2014, speaking of the Tory Burch Foundation, we have been partnering with Tory Burch to help women, small business owners across the country grow their businesses, unveiling business webinars, free educational resources. So we've had a terrific partnership. So talk about the barriers that you still see women entrepreneurs face.
Well, there are basically 3 barriers for women entrepreneurs that are really at the heart of our mission at Tory Burch Foundation. The difficulty in getting access to capital,
Right.
access to the education that they need at low or no cost,
Right.
in the time frame that they need, and the community that you
Right.
need in order to thrive. I don't know if everyone knows, but you should know that Bank of America has partnered with Tory Burch Foundation for years. I'm so excited about this next phase of our partnership because it's all about education
Right.
and providing on-demand tools and resources, which is really what women entrepreneurs need. They don't necessarily have the money to be able to go to school to get access
That's
to how do I figure out what my cash flow should
Right.
be? How do I figure out my go-to-market strategy? And they also don't necessarily have the bandwidth, the time to do it in a traditional fashion. And so we're basically building the largest library of educational tools, resources for women
Right.
entrepreneurs in this nation. And we're so proud of that work. And then finally, community. I'm an entrepreneur myself. I started a tech company called
Right.
The Crew. Starting a company, running it, growing it, exiting, it's the hardest thing that I've ever done. And I've done a lot of hard things
Right.
in my
Right.
life. And part of the reason why it's hard is because the growth rate of a company is faster than the growth rate of normal human development.
Right.
And because when your organization is small, it's so tied to your growth and your development. There's a direct correlation between how this company is going to evolve and how you choose to evolve yourself. You constantly have to be on the pulse of your own learning, your own education. And it can be very isolating. Community makes the difference between I'm on the bathroom floor crying because I'm not quite sure what I'm going to do about
Right.
the fact that this investor said no to
Right.
me
Right.
and whether or not I'm going to get up
Yeah.
the next day and really be able to do it. And we're really proud of the fact that we're able to provide community for our entrepreneurs as well. But those are some of the biggest barriers.
That's huge. And the community and the education, I'm so excited to see what comes out of that because I've heard it on our end as well. So that's incredible. So you being a small business owner prior to being with the Tory Burch Foundation, you also worked with Bank of America as a small business owner. So tell me about your experience with the bank.
So my experience with the bank starts long before I became a business owner. I had an experience when I was in the 4th grade. My dad was a preacher when I was growing up. And so there were always people in our homes and they would bring food and they would talk. And I'm the oldest of 4 girls. So my mom basically spent half of her life doing hair. And I will never forget one Saturday afternoon, I was sitting on the floor and my mom was cornrowing my hair. And there was these women from the church that had come over and they were basically talking. Now, I don't know the exact details of the conversation, but what I took away as a 4th grade girl was that a woman should always have her own bank account because apparently this woman they were talking
Right.
about was in a bad marriage and she couldn't get out because she didn't have her own bank account. And so when I turned 18, the first thing I told my dad that needed to happen was that I needed to go and get my own bank account. I opened a Bank of America bank account.
Thank you.
The first fight I got into with my husband later when we got married was that he wanted me to add him to my Bank of America bank account, to which I said, that's not happening. To this day, all of my earnings go into my Bank of America bank account. So when I became an entrepreneur, it was really a no-brainer to me that I would open a Bank of America account for my small business. That's why I'm getting to this. It wasn't like some thing. It was like, of course I'm going to open a Bank of America account. I'm obsessed. And one of the things that's really important to me in my life, I think it's my most basic need, is freedom. I wear freedom.
I see your necklace.
On my
It's
necklace.
Beautiful. Yes.
Bank of America has afforded me the freedom as a woman, as an entrepreneur, as a leader, to know that the resources that I earn will be invested wisely and that it's very well taken care of. So you are a part of my journey as a woman who has ambition, who wants to change the world. You've always been a part of that journey long before I was an entrepreneur.
Right. And what you brought back from fourth grade is pretty incredible. That freedom for you financially, and that fits within your framework for what's important, financial freedom is pretty incredible. So and you mentioned this, one of the messages of the Tory Burch Foundation is embrace ambition. And Tory Burch is known for her Embrace Ambition bracelets, which we both have on. Yes, it's beautiful, by the way. And this is a frequent gift that I give to people for special occasions, my daughter and her college roommates who are graduating. So it's especially nice. And I think this is one of the frontiers on an unconscious bias that we still have to tackle. Women with ambition sometimes can be misrepresented. So talk to me about how you've exemplified this motto of ambition in your life.
I love ambition. There's a book that I highly recommend everyone to read. I love books, so there are lots of books I recommend. But one of them is a book called Necessary Dreams. It's by a woman named Anna Feld. And the reason why I love this book is because she defines ambition in a very clear way that I'll never forget, which is a desire to be really good at something. So you want to achieve mastery of your craft, combined with the desire to receive public recognition. You want your gold star. I'm a Girl Scout, so I've always wanted my gold star. So in reading this book, I realized, well, Tiffany, you've always been ambitious. You've always wanted to get that A, and you've always wanted your recognition for getting the A. The challenge with our society and with gender is that women are encouraged to be really good at things. We pride ourselves on being really good at things. We put our heads down. We achieve really great results. But society hasn't always encouraged us to want the recognition. In fact, some of the values that we're instilled with are about humility. They're about sacrifice. They're not about me, give me my gold star. So often women can feel a bit ambivalent about ambition. She wants to be really good. She wants credit, but she's not supposed to want the credit. And so therefore, I'm not quite sure about this ambition thing. But I think that if we can deconstruct what it is, I think it makes it okay. I think it gives us more permission to say, yes, I do really great work and I should be rewarded for that. And I should be recognized for that, just like I would do for anyone else. And I hope that it can become less and less and less a dirty word for a woman to be
I agree with you.
ambitious. So I think that part of the reason why I've been able to embody ambition is because I've always had something else that I was ambitious for. Whether it was my little sisters, whether it was my family, whether it was my community. I'm very ambitious and bullish on women and girls right now and what we can achieve and why we need to invest in them. But it has been a journey for me to just be ambitious for Tiffany.
That's right.
And I'm still working on that.
I think we all are. And I think it's overcoming that stigma that can be out there. And, you know, your ambition for women and girls is incredible, but you should also be ambitious for yourself. That's okay.
That's it.
That's right. So in 20 years, Tory Burch has to be an incredible woman to work with. She's built a global fashion empire with 300 stores worldwide, I think more than 300. She's a philanthropist. She's invested heavily in women. How did you get involved with her foundation, and what's it been like to work with her? Because she seems pretty amazing.
So The Tory Burch Foundation is a best kept secret. It's been empowering women entrepreneurs for over a decade. As you know, we've been partnering. Most people actually don't know that a percentage of the money that they spend on their bags and on their ready-to-wear goes to empowering women entrepreneurs. I got involved because I was asked to be an advisor for the Fellows program, and I was obsessed the first year that they asked me and continued to participate. I also was invited to speak at their Embrace Ambition Summit. I've bought the bracelets for my sorority sisters anytime I host a bridal shower. So, and the bracelet, 100% of the proceeds of this Embrace Ambition bracelet go to the organization. So I knew, one, that Tory was very committed to this work, that she wasn't doing it for just marketing purposes because it wasn't splashed everywhere, that she really wanted to create impact. And I respect that. Because I'm a founder and entrepreneur myself, I know how difficult it is. And the fact that she now has a 20-year-old company in which I have to tell you, now that I'm in the company, the culture is fantastic. When I tell you it matters who's in charge and who had a really good mom that raised them well, clearly.
Yeah,
People are nice and kind and generous, within the organization. I couldn't say no, at the invitation to really carry the work forward. And it's been amazing to work with her. She's the real deal. She's what we call the real deal.
I imagine that because she's been able to bring you onto her team. So that's also a reflection of her commitment to doing what she's doing. So I've also heard you talk about sending the elevator back down for more women so we don't get lonely at the top. And I love that. So what does that actually look like in practice for those of us who want to continue to advocate for women? And this is incredibly important. Absolutely.
So first of all, that phrase came from the woman who I mentioned at the top, Marie C. Wilson. And it came during a moment when I was working for her. Her schedule was always very packed. And I had something that I wanted to put on her schedule, but she had a meeting with a young woman that I felt was just, Marie, like there's a gazillion of these young, like college-age women who want to talk to you and meet with you. Like, we actually have something bigger here that we need to do that's more important. And she corrected me by saying, Tiffany, this young woman is just as important as this donor. And I invest in women because it's going to get really lonely at the top if I don't send the elevator back down. What do you think you're doing here? I'm investing in you too. I think it's critically important. The ways that I send the elevator back down include, one, having a list of women who I really am excited about, who I can refer when I have to say no to the many things that come over the plate. So if I get an opportunity and I can't do it, I'll often say, hey, would you like someone else to do it? I have 6 mentees that I invest in, and I spend a lot of time helping them to achieve clarity through guidance and encouragement.
So what closing words of wisdom do you have for the women watching, especially for those who are looking to take that next step, try something different, and take a little risk?
Oh, I would say 2 things. One, I would remind them of what my parents taught me, which is that if you want something you've never had before, you're going to have to do something you've never done before in order to get it. And also that you are the most powerful change agent in your own journey. Every day, I ask my kids, and it makes me a little teary-eyed talking about it now because she's ahead of me. She's got a daughter who's about to graduate from college, but my first is going to college. And I won't see him every day the way that I have for the past 17 years. But every single day, since he's gone off to preschool, I ask him at the beginning of the day, honey, what kind of day do you want to create for yourself? And he says, a good day. And I say, you create that day. You have the power to create that. And that's what I just want women to know and understand, because we often feel like the walls are caving in on the text messages, the emails, the meetings, the committees, the pickups, the pets, everything. All of the responsibilities that we have. But in every single moment that you have, you actually have the power to decide who you are, what you're going to do, what you're going to respond to, who you're going to be. And I think that if we can keep that in mind, the world will be the better for it, as will women.
That's incredibly inspiring, Tiffany. Thank you so much for being with us.
Thank you.